Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we are breaking down my tournament. That's right. This is Wyndham Championship week. I'm referring to it as my tournament because it is taking place about 18 minutes from my front door in Greensboro, North Carolina. I grew up in Greensboro. I live in kind of like a suburb of Greensboro now, if you want to call it that. So I'm about 18 minutes from Sedgefield Country Club. I have walked every inch of this golf course. This is one of my favorite events of the year. I've been to it multiple times. I know how to get around this golf tournament. I know how to get around Greensboro. So if you are heading to the Wyndham Championship this week, reach out to me. I don't know if I'm going to be making it out to the course myself, between having to take care of my now 11-month-old daughter and the potential weather that we're going to have this week. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the tournament or not, but if you are heading there, reach out to me. I can give you some advice, some recommendations, some things to do while you're in Greensboro. And who knows, maybe if I make it out to the course, maybe we can link up and enjoy some golf together. But if you are here, you know the drill. This is our all-in-one preview. So we're going to break down the course itself. We're going to take a look at the stats and what golfers should play well here. And then we're going to look at it from an angle for DFS, betting, and one and none. So no matter what action you're putting on the Wyndham Championship this week, we've got you covered. And hopefully we're going to give you guys the best advice and the best tips on who to pick for this golf tournament. All right, so we're going to go ahead and cut the introduction there. Enough with that. Y'all know the deal. If you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. We're very close to 500. Please hit the like button. But let's go ahead and dive in and start talking about Sedgefield Country. All right, so Sedgefield Country Club is nestled in the heart of the Piedmont Triad of North Carolina in Greensboro. Actually, it's very close to having a Jamestown mailing address, if I'm not mistaken. Jamestown is a town that is quite close to Greensboro. Jamestown is actually where my parents' house is. So I know all about this course. I've never gotten to play here. It is quite private. I would love the chance to play here. I've driven through here multiple times. There's a very nearby course called Grandover that I played numerous times, and kind of on the way to Grandover, you drive through Sedgefield. By PGA Tour standards, this is quite a narrow golf course. It's quite a short golf course too. When the grandstands are here and when there's crowds and there's people everywhere, it feels very small and very crowded. But if you were to drive through Sedgefield on a non-tournament week, it's actually fairly wide and actually not super difficult for amateurs until you get on the greens. So let's break that down. So Sedgefield Country Club is a par 70 on the PGA Tour, a little over 7,100 yards. It is one of the shortest courses on the PGA Tour schedule. And it is the last week before the FedEx Cup playoffs. It has kind of held this spot annually as the last event before the playoffs since this tournament moved to Sedgefield Country Club in 2008, I believe. Previously, this tournament was held at Forest Oaks Country Club, which is on the southeast side of Greensboro. Of course, I have played also a beautiful golf course. But pretty much, this is a do or die week for a lot of guys in this field. You are seeing a ton of guys who are at or near the bubble for making the FedEx Cup playoffs teed up this week. That's why this generally garners a pretty deep field. You don't necessarily have the stars of the game like your Scotty, your Xander, your Rorys, but you do have a lot of names and a lot of guys that golf fans should know. And it's a pretty good field showing up here to Greensboro, North Carolina. Now, the fairways, the rough, and the greens are all Bermuda grass. You do not want to be in this Bermuda grass rough. Being from North Carolina, playing on courses that have Bermuda rough, it can be quite unpredictable. You never really know if the ball is going to sit up, or even if it is not sitting up, if you can get kind of a fly or lie. You just don't really want to test the rough here at this golf course. That is the best advice I can give. It is also quite narrow in terms of landing zones. The fairways themselves aren't like super narrow, but the deal is that you have a ton of trees that are like right adjacent to the fairway. There's not a whole big difference between fairway and tree trouble here at Sedgefield. So you're really going to have to avoid the big miss off the tee, or else you're just going to be punching out of the woods on your second shot. Now, in terms of scoring and the holes on the scorecard, there are only 2 par 5s on the scorecard, and they are both very scoreable. They're going to be reachable for most, if not the entire field, and that's going to be where the guys are going to want to do a lot of scoring on. There are a lot of par 4s with it being a par 70. There are actually 8 par 4s in between 400 and 450 yards. So if you're doing the math, you figure about a 280-yard drive, then that's a 120 to 170-yard shot in. There is a lot of driver, short iron, driver wedge holes, or maybe even 3-wood short iron holes here on this golf course, with that many holes being in that concentration of yardage. Now, this is a very positional golf course. You do not want to get out of position off the tee. With those tree line fairways, you just don't want to have to deal with them. being in the fairway further back is going to be more vital than being in the rough or in the trees closer to the green. Long hitters typically don't have great history here because, it kind of takes away that advantage of their game. But it's not to say that, a long hitter can't show up and hit 3-wood or 3-iron all week and have a really good week as well, because they'll be hitting the same distance as most of the rest of the field. So that's just kind of my take on it. You don't have to be a bomber this week, but distance is not going to hurt you if you choose to play a solid strategy and hit a lot of fairways. Now, the greens themselves, like we said, they are Bermuda grass. They are technically above average size, but they do not play like it. There's a lot of tiered greens with big slopes from one tier to another. So really, wherever the pin is, you're going to want to hit to that tier or to that kind of quadrant of the green. So they play a lot smaller than they actually are, because if you're on the opposite tier from a lot of these holes, you're going to be looking at least a 2-putt, if not a 3-putt opportunity. Now, winners here tend to have 2 paths to victory. You really have a winning score that's going to be around 20-ish under most weeks. And how you get there is one of 2 paths. We've seen it each of the last 2 years. Last year, Lucas Glover was your champion, and he had an elite tee to green game that was coupled with just solid putting. And what I mean by that is just kind of, keeping it in play off the tee, hitting fairways, on approach, hitting a lot of greens, giving himself a lot of birdie looks, and knocking down just enough of them to win. And then 2 years ago, we had the Tom Kim pathway, which was just tread water tee to green, just knock it in the fairway, knock it on the green, and get scorching hot with the putter. He gained over 10 strokes putting when he won that week. So really, we're going to mention that a lot in terms of golfers that we're targeting this week. We want golfers that are going to take path A by having an elite tee to green game and just be solid with the putter, or path B, which is where you want to just tread water tee to green and go nuclear with the putter. Those are going to be the 2 ways that guys can kind of win this event here this week. Now, winners have had varying amounts of form coming in. You've seen guys win this tournament where they just didn't have a whole lot of good form coming in, and you've seen guys come in off of runs and continue their run. So I don't think recent form is necessarily the biggest thing to look at, but what we're going to look at is guys who typically play other short-ish, easy-ish course as well, because this is a short and easy-ish course. So that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at big time. And we're definitely going to be looking at those approach and those putting numbers, because in terms of approach, the more birdie looks that you give yourself, the more opportunities you are going to have to score. And like we said, if you knock in enough of those birdies, that's how you're going to be able to win this week. Now, one thing I will say, just from going to this event and watching it on TV, it is a lot more hilly and undulating than it appears on TV. There's a lot of elevation changes. There's a lot of sloping lies. You're not often going to have just a pretty clean flat lie here at Sedgefield. So that is something that is going to have to be navigated. There's not really a stat for dealing with that, but that is something that is the case often at Augusta National and TPC Deer Run. So guys who tend to play well on approach it, like those 2 courses, may just have a better knack for hitting off of sloping lies, but I don't think that's something you can really quantify too much. If we take a look at the overall course history at Sedgefield, what you will see is there's a lot of guys that know that this course suits their game, and they show up and play it every year. Webb Simpson, Brant Snedeker, Lucas Glover, Bill Haas, Billy Horschel, right? They just play it all the time because they know that they play it well and they know that it suits their game. Now, in terms of true strokes gained, who are the best players at Sedgefield? On top is Sungjae Im, who's played each of the last 5 years, never finished outside the top 25. Webb Simpson, this event used to kind of be nicknamed the Webb Simpson Invitational. He WD'd in 22. He was going to miss the cut. There was going to be a Saturday morning finish for round 2, and he just decided, look, I'm going to miss the cut anyway. I'm just going to dip and head back home after Friday night. So that is kind of the only blemish on his resume, is that WD in 2022. Even though right now Webb is kind of at the tail end of his career, this is not the same Webb Simpson that we've seen coming in here for over a decade now. Other guys who played well here: Cam Davis, Nikolai Højgaard, Eric Cole, Taylor Moore, Thomas Dietrich, Billy Horschel, we've mentioned already. Matty Schmid, Kevin Kisner, Zach Johnson, and Siwoo Kim all have a great course history here at this course. Now, in terms of our key stats, we've done this for every course on the PGA Tour so far this year. The key stats at Sedgefield, number 1 is going to be strokes gained approach. That's a key stat every single week. In terms of off the tee play, I want to look at total driving and good drive percentage. In other words, I need you to be in the fairway, or what good drive percentage does is it gives you credit for a fairway hit if you're able to hit the green in regulation. So in other words, I need you keeping it in the ballpark off the tee. Those two stats are going to look at that. Opportunities gained is a great stat. Basically, that is measuring relative to the field, how many birdie looks are you giving yourself? And if you're giving yourself more birdie looks this week, that's going to give you a great opportunity to win, because at the end of the day, this event is going to require some birdies to be made. Birdie or better percentage is another thing to look at, and Bermuda putting is another thing to look at. And like I mentioned, I'm going to heavily feature course history at this event and course history at other shorter positional golf courses this week. The comp courses that I'm going to use, so there are a lot of them, because we've seen winners here have a lot of crossover success at a lot of different courses. But what's the kind of recurring theme? There are other shorter positional golf courses, right? So TPC Sawgrass, we've seen Adam Scott play well at both, Webb Simpson play well at both, Siwoo Kim play well at both, TPC Deer Run, Lucas Glover has won that event and won here. Harbor Town, Webb Simpson has won both, Siwoo Kim plays well at both. East Lake and Detroit Golf Club are both Donald Ross designs. They're the only other two Donald Ross designs on the PGA Tour, in addition to what you're going to see here at Sedgefield. TPC Summerlin is another shorter positional track with Bermuda greens, won by Tom Kim. Tom Kim has also won a Wyndham Championship. Colonial Country Club and Sea Island are two more shorter positional Bermuda grass golf courses that I think fit the bill pretty good. And oddly enough, Royal Troon features some crossover. The host of the recent Open Championship. Henrik Stenson has won both at Royal Troon and Wyndham Championship. Billy Horschel, Justin Rose, Siwoo Kim, Sung Jae-im, all near the top of the leaderboard at Royal Troon at this past Open Championship, all have a great track record at Sedgefield Country Club. All right, so that does it for the key stats and the course itself. So now let's go ahead and dive down the rabbit hole and look at our custom model. All right, so if you've been with us for the entirety of the PGA Tour season, you know that when I say dive down the rabbit hole, you know that I'm referring to the rabbit hole, which is a tool from BetSperts Golf that has a great golf database, allows you to put all kinds of filters and conditions on it that really allows you to dive deep into the weeds and build a custom model and see just kind of piece by piece what skill set should play well at a specific golf course. So what we're looking at this week, I threw together my big list of comp courses. I'm going to skip the part where we talk about Sedgefield because we kind of did that already. But looking at all of my comp courses, who plays well at those? Well, the top 10 in this field is Sung Jae-im, Aaron Rai, Christian Bezaden, Denny McCarthy, Eric Cole, Cam Davis, Adam Hadwin, Brian Harman, Luke Clanton, and Seamus Power as the top 10. Now, in terms of comp courses that maybe weren't on that list, I wanted to look at just all courses that are shorter than average. So in other words, who plays shorter than average golf courses? Well, your top 10 is Poston, Cole, M, Davis Thompson, Brian Harman, Hadwin, Brendan Todd, Ben Griffin, Cam Davis, and Steven Jger. And then who plays easier than average courses? Well, Sung Jae-im, Brian Harman, Eric Cole, Denny McCarthy, Brendan Todd, Minwoo Lee, JT Poston, Justin Rose, Mark Hubbard, Bo Hostler is your top 10 there. Now, also, like we said, strokes gained approach is like the biggest determining factor for me this week. So the best players in the field in the calendar year 2024 on approach are Keith Mitchell, Shane Lowry, Doug Yim, Aaron Rai, JJ Spawn, Siwoo Kim, Jonathan Vegas, Ryan Moore, Andrew Novak, and Matt Wallace. I also threw in approach in the last 16 rounds on there just to see who is currently hot with their irons. Excuse me. Mitchell, Gim, Kuchar, Spawn, and M are your top 5 in that category. Now, I also wanted to look at pure Bermuda grass putting. And the guys who are the best in the field, and I also put their baseline next to it here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see who ups their baseline on Bermuda grass as opposed to all types of greens. So the best putters in the field on Bermuda grass have been Ben Griffin, Andrew Putnam, Harris English, David Skins, Maverick McNeely, Harry Hall, Eric Cole, Chesson Hadley, Thomas Dietrich, and Taylor Moore. Interestingly enough, Mackenzie Hughes and Denny McCarthy are 1 and 2 for a putting baseline. They are 13th and 17th respectively on Bermuda grass greens. But that's still pretty darn solid in my opinion. Now, looking at good drive percentage was another one that we mentioned to look at. In that category, we've got Cooper Musselman, Luke Clanton, Nate Lashley, Aaron Rai, Ryan Moore, Patrick Fishburne, Will Gordon, Carson Young, Jonathan Vegas, and Daniel Berger. I also do want to add, I added the filter that the fairways have to be harder or average to hit for that stat. And it's the same way with total driving, which we're going to look at right now. Cooper Musselman again, Luke Clanton, Jordan Spieth, Akshay Bhatia, Steven Jger, Jonathan Vegas, Sam Stevens, Jim Herman, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Austin Eckroat. I kind of like that list better than the good drive percentage list. I think you got a generally better crop of players on it. Now, birdie or better percentage on courses that are easier than average. It's going to use a lot of events that were played this summer. So a lot of guys who have played on kind of this, summer birdie fest stretch on the PGA Tour are going to show up well. Luke Clanton, Cooper Musselman, Mac Meisner, Michael Thorbjornsen, Chan Kim, Eric Cole, Trace Crow, Ryan McCormick, Pearson Cootie, and Blaine Hale Jr. is your top 10. Quite a motley crew on that one. Now throw all that into a model. And what you get is a number one golfer of Luke Clanton. Now, Luke Clanton is still an amateur. He is got a very small sample size, but like I kind of alluded to, he has played this summer birdie fest stretch of events quite well. None of them have been on Bermuda greens, so we don't really know how he's going to react to that, but he has all the right numbers going for him in terms of he's a great approach player. He scores, been playing well. I understand how he came out as number one in my model. I'm not necessarily going to immediately lock him into all my DFS lineups because he was number one, though, because I understand the nature of him having a small sample size. Number two is really the guy that I like this week. That is Sungjae Im, followed by Brian Harman, number 3, Ben Griffin, 4, JJ Spawn, 5, Eric Cole, 6. Interestingly enough, those 3 in a row, Griffin, Spawn, Cole, all in the 7K range on DraftKings, all pretty long odds to win. And we mentioned those 2 pathways earlier. Griffin and Cole are guys that can get nuclear hot with the putter. They're at their best putting on Bermuda greens. They're at their best at short golf courses. I think they make a lot of sense this week. JJ Spawn is the guy whose tee to green game has been super solid for all of 2024, and he's had a recent run of good finishes because the putter has just barely gotten above neutral. And so if he's able to do that again this week, he certainly has a chance to win as well, like all 3 of them, Griffin, Spawn, and Cole, as plays in DFS this week. The rest of the top 10 is Cam Davis, Shane Lowry, Keith Mitchell, and Siwoo Kim. Not really a whole lot of surprises there, in my opinion. I kind of expected Akshay Bhatia to show up better on this model, which he did not. He was all the way down at 31. His history at the Wyndham is kind of going against him on that one. Now, that is just my first run of the model, the Monday run. Every single Wednesday, we publish an article where I post the final top 10 of my model because I tinker with it all week long in order to perfect it. I also publish my DFS core for DraftKings as well as FanDuel with a full write-up and full article on why my core is what they are, why they are my plays, and how I came to the conclusion of that model. So if you want access to that article on my Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks is the place that you can go for that. You will also get access to our NFL and college football DFS cores when that regular season starts, as well as our best ball tools for NFL and college football as well. So check that out if you are interested. Also, while I got you here, go ahead on YouTube or wherever you're listening to podcasts. Underdog Fantasy has a contest called the Pup Cup that is a best ball draft for the FedEx Cup playoffs. We made a video for it where we broke it all down, talked about the best golfers to target, how to kind of build your roster, kind of how to draft. And we, published that a few weeks ago. So the information is still pretty good. Obviously, the FedEx Cup standings are a little bit different. But if you plan on doing a best ball draft on Underdog for the FedEx Cup playoffs, make sure to check that out. If you are new on Underdog, use my promo code, which is in the description on the podcast as well as on the YouTube video. Now, that's everything we need to know about the golf course and the stats. Let's take a deeper dive to the golfers. All right, so taking a look at the board on DraftKings for their DFS salaries, they did something very interesting this week. It kind of follows the same pattern that they had for the 3M Open, where they only have 10 golfers priced above $9,000. Now, when this happens, what you typically see is an ownership surge on all those guys, because you have to spend your salary one way or another. And if there's limited options that are above the aggregate average of $8,300, then pretty much those guys are going to have to be owned in more lineups. It's just simple math, right? And so when that happens, I prefer to try to get it right as opposed to try to play the ownership game up top. I think it's still very wise to play the ownership game at the bottom of your lineup. I think it is very wise to try to play the ownership game in terms of playing unique or different combinations of players. But in terms of who to play at the top of the board, I would rather try to get that right than worry about ownership. Like, for instance, if I think that Sung J M is going to be 30% owned, which I think is a very legitimate number, but I only think Jordan Spieth is going to be 15% owned, well, let me ask myself, is Sung J M twice as likely to win the tournament as Jordan Spieth? I think so. Ergo, I can play Sung J M with confidence, right? So let's go ahead and break that down, which for the record, the ones that I think are going to be owned, M, Kim, Harman, those are probably going to be your three highest owned. The ones that are going to be the lowest owned up top, Cam Young, Jordan Spieth, Minwoo Lee, I don't think is going to get a whole lot of ownership. Those are the three that I think if you're trying to play the ownership game, those would be the guys to play. So let's go ahead and break it down each guy individually. So Sung J M has 0 red flags, in my opinion. He is the betting favorite. He should be the betting favorite. He has a great profile coming into this event. His strokes gained profile is pretty much entirely green coming in. He's gaining strokes in every category. 10 of his last 12 starts have been top 12 finishes. Oh, by the way, he has a great track record here at Sedgefield. 5 appearances, 5 top 25s, 3 top 10s. Look, the only nit that I can pick with Sung Jae is that he doesn't often win golf tournaments. That's just a simple fact. He doesn't win very often, but he has a heck of a lot of T6s. So if you're looking to bet somebody to win this week, I don't think that betting Sung Jae as the favorite is the best move. Do I think that he has the best statistical profile coming into this tournament? Yes, absolutely. But just simple fact of the matter, he doesn't win enough golf tournaments to warrant being the betting favorite in an event like this. I think he's a very solid top 10 bet or top 20 bet. If you're looking to do like a top 10 or top 20 parlay, which I'm a big proponent of, then I think he is a great nominee to put in one of those. Shane Lowry has been a ball striking demon this summer, just pretty much playing well wherever he goes since the start of June. And the putter has just not always cooperated. Well, this week, it's pretty simple. If he brings his same ball striking ability, which I think suits this course quite well, he's going to finish in the top 20. If the putter cooperates, he has the upside to win this golf tournament. I think he is a better bet to win than Sung Jae, but I think he is also a much riskier top 10, top 20 bet. I think he carries a little bit more risk in DFS. However, I do think he will be less owned than Sung Jae. Billy Horschel is an interesting one because, he had the T2 in the Open Championship out of nowhere, by the way. And then he withdrew from the 3M, said he had an illness. And it's been 2 weeks since then. And now he's basically flying from Scotland to Minnesota to Greensboro. And I don't really know what to make of all that. I don't really know what to make of the emotional week that he had at the Open Championship, but it's almost a month ago at this point, and he's been great at Sedgefield. He hasn't missed a cut since 2015, has 4 top 10s over that stretch, plays this tournament pretty much every year. So if you're looking for course history, he's a great option. I just don't really know what to make of his recent game because it's kind of been all over the place, and the T2 at the Open kind of came out of nowhere. Siwoo Kim is a course horse, just absolute incredible history here. His only bad finishes here at the Wyndham have come when he has bled strokes on the green. His tee to green game has always been good here at this event. He's a guy who is very controlled and accurate off the tee, very solid with his short irons and his wedges. Great profile for this course in this event. And coming in, he's pretty much had a very similar profile. Very solid tee to green game. Putter can be up and down, but he's played here enough times that he's got history on these greens. He's been putting okay recently. I think that this is a pretty solid spot to try it out. Siwoo at, he's probably going to be one of my preferred plays up top. Cameron Young and Jordan Spieth, I already mentioned, I don't think anybody's going to play them. I don't think that they are on paper good course fits. However, the interesting part with Cameron Young is that he has shown an ability to play well at shorter golf courses by clubbing down off the tee and being a little more controlled. He's going to have to do that here this week. The driver, which is one of his biggest weapons, is not going to be a huge advantage this week. So he's going to have to find that advantage elsewhere, which does make the job a little bit harder. But he has done it before. He has good finishes at shorter courses like at the Travelers, like at Harbor Town. So I definitely think that this is a spot where you could talk me into playing Cam Young at low ownership. Jordan Spieth does not often come to this event. He's been a great driver of the golf ball recently. It's been the approach and around the green and putting that has been not so good. But Jordan's one of these guys that we've seen at various parts of his career where each facet of his game can click at any time. And if they all click at the right time, he can be the best golfer in this field. But the only part of his game that's really going right now is the driver. Like I said, I think he's a much better DFS play because he's going to be lower owned. You could talk me into playing him, but he's not like the best on paper play this week, in my opinion. Brian Harman is a pretty solid on paper play. He's a guy that he generally plays well at shorter positional golf courses, and that shows in his track record. He's generally a pretty good short iron and wedge player. That shows up in his track record. His history here is a little bit mixed, though. He's played it 6 times, missed the cut in 3 of them. Don't really know what to make of that. I don't think he's a bad play. I think he's going to be pretty popular. Davis Thompson, I think, is probably going to be pretty popular as well. Won the John Deere Classic, which is one of my comp courses. He's another guy like Shane Lowry that was just really striking the ball really well over the course of the summer. And I particularly didn't think that the Scottish Open or the Open Championship was going to be a great fit for him course-wise, and he made the cut at both, and I'll give him credit for that. So Davis Thompson, definitely a guy that I would consider this week. Akshay Bhatia is interesting because he is a North Carolina guy, grew up in the Raleigh area, so he's used to playing on this type of golf course. There's a lot of country clubs in North Carolina that look a lot like Sedgefield that I'm sure Akshay has played at. However, he's missed the cut 3 times at Sedgefield. But his statistical profile right now is a lot different than what it had been coming into Sedgefield the previous 3 times that he played it. He is a lot more controlled and accurate off the tee. He is a lot more, what's the right word I'm looking for here? He's always going to be hot or cold with the putter, but he's shown the ability to get hot more often than not than he previously had coming into this event previously. So I definitely think Akshay is going to be an option. He's going to be a guy that I play in my DFS lineups this week just because I'm kind of here for him always, right? Like I just think that with his statistical profile, a guy who's long and accurate off the tee, a guy who's really good on approach, that type of profile is going to win golf tournaments and is eventually going to win major golf tournaments as well. So Akshay is a guy that I'm going to continue to back just week in, week out. And I'm hoping that the 3 missed cuts here are an example of him maturing as a golfer and being better now than he was then. Minwoo Lee is an interesting one, much like Cameron Young. I don't think that he's going to have his best weapon available to him, which is his long distance off the tee. He also is prone to a big miss, which will really get you in trouble here. I don't think he's a particularly great course fit, probably a guy that I'm not going to be playing a whole lot of at 9,000. However, Cam Davis, for whatever reason, has just an incredible track record at Donald Ross golf courses. He has 2 wins at Detroit Golf Club, home of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He plays well at Eastlake when he gets there. And at this event, he's played it 3 times, finished 7th, 15th, and 22nd. For whatever reason, Cam Davis on Donald Ross golf courses is a guy that you just click for pretty much every time. I feel the same way about Shane Lowry and Siwoo Kim. Both of those 2 guys are elite at Donald Ross and Pete Dye courses. Pete Dye actually designed Sedgefield Country Club's sister course, which is known as the Cardinal. Pete Dye kind of learned a lot from Donald Ross, and they're pretty similar in terms of their architectural style. So Lowry, Kim, good at Dye and Ross courses. Cam Davis, good at Donald Ross courses as well. A guy that I think is going to be super popular this week is Aaron Rai. He's pretty much coming off of the best run of his career, in my opinion. So pretty much, we were talking about those 2 player profiles earlier, right? Aaron Rai traditionally would fit into type A, where he has the elite tee to green game and just needs to bring the putter. The problem is that over this summer, he's brought the putter, and it's gotten him a ton of great finishes. 2nd at the Rocket Mortgage, 7th at the John Deere, 4th at the Scottish Open. He just never brought his full tee to green game when the putter cooperated. And so I think on paper, this course is a great fit for him, but he's been really dependent on the putter. His tee to green game has actually not been its normal solid self. So I don't really know what to make of Aaron Rai. I do think he's going to be supremely highly owned. So he's a guy that I'm probably going to be under the field on this week, if I'm being totally honest. Now, the rest of the 8K range, kind of putting them into my 2 buckets, right? The great tee to green game, bucket A, the great putter, bucket B. Keegan Bradley, certainly a bucket A player, a guy that is generally pretty controlled and accurate off the tee, pretty good with his irons, hot and cold with the putter. If you get him on a hot week, he can win. Thomas Dietrich, Robert McIntyre, Maverick McNeely are bucket B. Dietrich can peak with the putter at any time. He's been great this summer. He's actually been pretty solid on approach this summer, which is uncharacteristic of him. Robert McIntyre is a guy that he pretty much was lights out with the putter in his 2 wins, and his tee to green game wasn't even that great. So if he's good enough with the putter that he can be not great tee to green and still win, then certainly a course like Sedgefield that kind of de-emphasizes tee to green play and accentuates the putter is a course that if McIntyre brings a hot putter, he can absolutely blow away the rest of the field. All right, so that does it for the 8K range and below. Let's take a quick breather and then let's talk about some value plays. So looking at the board, all in all, this is a really stacked 7K range, in my opinion. What I think you're going to see a lot of people do when they build their DFS lineups this week is avoid the 6K range altogether. And so I think that this is a great week to try to be unique by construction. So basically I would say either bombard the 7K range or try to avoid it, or try to get like 3 9K guys or try to get 4 guys above 8K, something like that. But I think that this is a week where you either want to get more or less than average in terms of the 7K golfers. And I think that the 6K range is going to go largely overlooked, I should say. So if you're looking to play the ownership game, playing guys down in the 6K range is going to be the move. So the 7K range, we're going to continue to talk about our 2 buckets, bucket A being the great tee to green profile, bucket B being the guys who can be great putters. Just keep that in mind as we go forward. JT Poston is going to be a case study in course history versus recent form. He has been quite awful in his last 2 starts, not even close to making the cut in either instance, but it's a great golf course for him. He has won at this event. He is from Hickory, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half from Sedgefield. So he's certainly a guy with history of playing in this type of the country, certainly a guy that has history playing well with this event. I think that whether or not you play JT Poston is a case study in recent form versus course history. If you're a recent form guy, you're not going to play him. If you're a course history guy, you are going to play JT Poston. Keith Mitchell fits into my bucket A. But the problem is that he's so bad with the putter, he never gains with the putter. So he really makes a hard sell to play, in my opinion, this week, because you're going to have to gain with the putter if you want to win. And he just doesn't do it very often, even though his approach play has been the best in the field in this calendar year. We already mentioned my love for Eric Cole. I think he's a great play this week. One of my absolute favorites. Max Grazerman is coming in with probably the best recent form out of anybody in the 7K range. So if you are a recent form guy, he would be the guy to go with. And he's doing it in a pretty sustainable way where the ball striking has been consistently good. And when the putter peaks is when his finishes peak. So he's a guy that could probably fit into either bucket if we're being totally honest. Will Zalatoris is an interesting one. So he played his college golf at Wake Forest, which is quite local to Sedgefield. He's played here twice, finished in the 20s both times. And pretty much he's been awful over the last 2 months, just straight awful, if we're being honest. His only made cuts they've been elevated events. So I don't even think you can call them made cuts. And he's finished in the 40s in those, which is not good. So I think you can make a case to play Will this week because he's going to be low owned, but also, got a little bit of an inside source that he's been playing a lot of golf at Old Town Club, which is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's super exclusive. It's where Wake Forest plays their golf. And it's a very good comp to Sedgefield. So he has been in North Carolina at a course that's a very good comp, working on his game the last few weeks. And I think that you can make an argument that's going to help him a lot, that he hasn't been having to do all the travel, hasn't been stressing about, a lot of these finishes. And he's coming into an event that has some meaning to him, and I think he's going to want to play well at. So I think if you're playing a narrative game, Will Zalatoris at low ownership, $7,600, you could do much worse than that. Steven Jger is a guy that pretty much I think is going to be pretty solid at all your regular run-of-the-mill PGA Tour courses. I don't like him at your kind of quirky courses, major courses, but anywhere that's going to be just a regular PGA Tour course where it's point and shoot, Steven Jger is going to be pretty good at. He's been pretty good at this event. I have no problem going back to him at 7,500. Now let's start talking about the buckets. So in terms of guys who have great tee to green game, that if they just bring the putter, they can win this event in the 7K range. This is why I'm saying the 7K range is so deep. There's a lot of guys in here that can win this event. Lucas Glover, your defending champ. Adam Svensson, who's been putrid with the putter, but he has a win at one of my comp courses at Sea Island. He's at his best on Bermuda greens as well. Doug Gim, one of the best approach players in the field, just has not been putting very well at all. And Michael Thorbjornsen and Seamus Power. Michael Thorbjornsen's a young guy that is quite talented. Seamus Power, I just play all the time, quite frankly. And I think that he's a pretty good fit at this event. You roll him out at short golf courses. And then JJ Spawn, similar deal to Seamus Power. He's been really good on approach lately. We mentioned him already. He's also one of my favorite plays here in this range. The guys who can peak with the putter are Denny McCarthy, one of the best putters of the golf ball in the world. You always play Denny at courses where tee to green game is de-emphasized in favor of the putter. Ben Griffin, we mentioned him already. He is a North Carolina guy who can get supremely hot with the putter. Mixed history at this event, but I'm trusting that he has history playing at this type of golf course and is great putting on Bermuda greens. Victor Perez, who's coming off of a very solid fourth-place finish at the Olympics after firing a 63 on Sunday. He can also get supremely hot with the putter. He did it at Hamilton earlier this year and nearly stole that win away from Robert McIntyre. And then pretty much you're looking at like the low 7K range. Meissner's got great recent form. Novak's got great recent form. Alex Smalley is actually a member at Sedgefield Country Club. He missed the cut here last year, so I don't think that's necessarily like a cure-all, but he certainly knows this track. He's been trending in the right direction, and he's been doing it a lot on his approach play, so I don't mind Alex Smalley at 7,100 either. And then you got CT Pan, who kind of like Victor Perez, played pretty well at the Olympics. He was 18th. He's a guy who was at his best at shorter positional golf courses, was runner-up at the John Deere recently. Really do like CT Pan at an even $7,000. Matty Schmid is also making the leap from France to Greensboro, played decent at the Olympics T26. I don't think he's a bad option either, also at his best at shorter positional golf courses. Andrew Putnam is a great putter on Bermuda grass, and he has been kind of trending in the right two areas, approach play and putting, in his last two starts. No problem going to Andrew Putnam at $7,000. Now we're looking at the 6K range. So let's kind of go back to our bucket talk here. I think there's more guys in this range who can peak with the putter than can peak with their tee to green game, if I'm being totally honest. Bridgeman is probably a guy who can bring his tee to green game. He played quite well at the 3M, just couldn't sustain it for 4 rounds. He's one of these guys that like you don't really know much about because he's new to the PGA Tour, but I think there's some upside there at 6,800. Chesson Hadley is a North Carolina guy, great history at this event, plays here every year. Have no problem rolling with Chesson Hadley. Chandler Phillips, pretty solid on approach, pretty solid at shorter golf courses. Recent form leaves a little bit to be desired. Don't mind going with him. Matthew Neesmith is another guy who is best at shorter golf courses. Really great. 2 of his last 3 starts have been top 10s. He's at his best when there's a short iron or a wedge in his hand, and this is a course that should do that for him. Don't have a problem with Matthew Neesmith at $6,700. And then the other guy that's kind of in this category of the tee to green game, I kind of like Hayden Buckley. I just kind of play him a lot at like shorter positional golf courses. He's a good driver of the golf ball in terms of he's long and accurate off the tee. He's at his best at short courses. Don't mind him at $6,500, but that is certainly a little bit of a wild card. I also think that Chez Reavie is worth a look here. He's not coming in on the best of form, but you play Chez at shorter golf courses, and what do you know? This is one of the shortest on the PGA Tour. Now, in terms of your putters, there's a lot in this 6K range that could just flip the putter in any given week and win this tournament just based off the back of that putter. In other words, my bucket B. And that is Ben Coles, Bo Hostler, Ben Silverman, Pearson Coody can all do that. I mean, really, you could put Chesson Hadley in that bucket as well, for being honest. David Skins can also get supremely hot with the putter on Bermuda. He did it at the Cognizant Classic and almost won. And then really after that, like I don't mind this as a week to play the random old guys. Like your Webb Simpsons, your Stuart Sinks are in play this week. It's a short golf course. They know that they can play well at it. Tyler Duncan, Zach Johnson, Ryan Moore, Bud Cauley, Zach Blair, I put them all in that bucket. Like this is the week to play those guys because their lack of distance off the tee is not going to hurt them. And you know they're going to put themselves in the right position. All right, so that does it for the golfers themselves. Let's take a quick breather and then let's talk about one and done for the week. Now, one quick thing before we talk about one and done, the weather this week is it's not looking great. One perk of the tournament being played 20 minutes from your front door is that you can just open up the weather app and look at your local hometown and see what the weather's going to do for the golf tournament. And it's going to rain Wednesday, it's going to rain Thursday, it's going to rain Friday, it's probably going to rain Saturday, which is not good for a golf tournament. Now, Sedgefield has also seen a ton of rain in the last 2 weeks, so it's probably going to be a little bit softer than it normally is played. I would personally, if you're somebody who likes to do weather waves in DFS, which I think is a very valid strategy, I would wait until as long as possible before making your weather wave lineups, whether you play all the PM guys, all the AM guys, whatever. I think it's quite possible there's going to be start and stop. And so even the weather wave that you think might be the good wave could turn into the bad wave. I think there's a possibility that this tournament only plays 54 holes. I think there's a possibility that it is a Monday finish. Maybe you get a Tuesday finish if they do that. But I think that the weather is going to present some obstacles this week. At the least, it is going to be a short golf course that is going to play very soft, which kind of will make the fairways play a little wider, because you won't have to worry about runouts. And I also think that it would allow guys to throw darts into greens. You might see scoring get a little bit better if you're seeing lift, clean, in place conditions with a soft golf course. So really, if you think that that's going to matter a lot for who will play well, then wait as long as possible to make your picks and see what the weather's going to do at those specific tee times. Now, for a one and done this week, there is a finite end to this one and done season. We've got this week the Wyndham, and hopefully your one and done is only doing 2 FedEx Cup playoff events, the FedEx St. Jude and the BMW Championship. So you only got 3 golfers left to use. Well, I'm going to be quite honest. Ain't nobody in this field that you're going to want to use in a FedEx Cup playoff event. Just point blank. Like, nobody, right? So you want to use your best guy. Now, who you consider your best guy will probably have to do a little bit with your position. If you are positioned well in a one and done, then Sung J M is probably going to be the guy that you want if you have him left. You see the one and done I'm in, about half the league has him left, and I expect pretty much everybody who has him to play him because he is the betting favorite. He is, coming in off great form with great course history, checks off all the boxes. He's the safe, chalky pick in one and done this week. If you are front running, he is the guy to play. If you do not have Sung J M, well, then you've got Brian Harman that we mentioned. We've got, Cameron Young, Akshay Bhatia, Shane Lowry, Billy Horschel, just a lot of other guys near the top of the DraftKings board and the betting board that you can go with and feel pretty comfortable about, right? Now, if you need to gain ground, this, I got to say, is probably not the event to try to gain a lot of ground at, because the FedEx Cup playoff events are going to have a bigger purse. There's going to be more money on the line. This is not a large purse event. So even if you get the winner right this week, you're only getting like $1 million. So I don't think this is a week to go too crazy. I think you would be better served hoping that the 2 golfers you have left for the FedEx Cup playoffs can save you or can gain you ground than trying to get ground this week. I think this is a week where trying to get the winner right is probably worth more than trying to gain a whole lot of ground, unless you're just at like the super back of the pack. Or if you're like, maybe if you're just outside the money in your one and done, maybe you want to try to get a little bit different. But if you're middle of the road or if you're front running, just be predictable, be easy this week. Make Sung J M the easy pick, or Shane Lowry or somebody like that. So with what I'm looking at, in this one and done, I'm in the top 30 cash. I'm currently in 50th. I feel very confident about the 2 golfers I have left at the FedEx St. Jude and the BMW Championship, because I have been saving spots for those 2 events. So I'm going to go fairly chalky this week. I'm not going to go with Sung J because I think everybody's going to pick Sung J. I'm going to go with Shane Lowry. I think that he is in really good position this week. I'm not going to want to use him at either of the 2 FedEx Cup playoff events. I wish I'd used him at the Open, because pretty much all the popular one and done picks at the Open missed the cut. But I think that he's a great option this week. I'm going to be rolling with Shane Lowry. All right, so that does it for our all-in-one preview. We broke down the course itself. We talked about building DFS lineups, making some bets, one and done. We got everything covered. If you like what you saw here in this video, please hit the like button. It helps me out a ton when you guys do that. And also subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 500 subscribers, which is a big milestone for us. Remember, if you want the weekly article with the DFS core plays as well as the model top 10, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Mike'sMoneyPicks. Check out the Underdog Pup Cup video, which is available on the YouTube channel and on the audio feed. And if you want to get a promo code for Underdog, check the link in the description. You can get your first deposit matched by using that code. And also you can head on to signupexpert.com/Mike'sPicks. If you're interested in investing in any sportsbook, DFS, player prop site, you get the best promo codes that are available for those. All right, so that is going to do it for this episode, y'all. Like I said, this is my tournament. I was super excited to talk about it. Really looking forward to watching it this week. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to the tournament or not, but if you're in Greensboro coming to the tournament, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to give you some suggestions on how to get around Sedgefield, what the best viewing spots are, what the best things are to do around Greensboro, where the best places to eat around Greensboro are. I know a lot about that. So pretty much that's going to do it for today, guys. Hopefully I was able to give you guys some good information and help you pick some winners this week, whether you're playing DFS, betting, or one and done. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck to you this week at the Wyndham, and I will see you guys.